Hey guys, so this is a tutorial on how to do beach waves on a faux live slab of wood. So I picked up this board from Home Depot and it's about 4 by 2 feet, and it looks like it's just a bunch of boards that have been glued together on the end. So nothing special, and it was cheap. It was about $20. Okay, so first you're going to make sure what side you want to do based on like how the wood looks, because you're going to have a part of it that's going to be blank and then you're going to have clear resin there. So you want to make sure to have the prettiest part of the board. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to cover that up with resin because I feel like that doesn't look very natural. But right here does. So that's where I'm going to start. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw kind of what a live edge would look like. Very uneven and curvy. So you can see I did that. So next I'm going to go in with a jigsaw and we're going to cut that, and then I'm going to sand it down to make it look like a live edge. So this is the jigsaw that we use. It's just a cheap Ryobi one. It does have, you know, different settings on it. We put it at an angle because I want that upward angle that live edge slabs usually have. So we're going to go ahead and cut along our line now. Alright, here we go. So it is cut, and you can see that it's at an upward angle so that I can sand it and have that live edge look. Also, I want to mention that in case you guys have never used a jigsaw before, make sure to hang your project off your surface so that you don't cut into it. This is the sander that I'm using. It's also Ryobi, and it's got sanding pads on it, which are 100 grit. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding on this edge. Up and down, sometimes flat. You just kind of got to go with it and see what looks good. So next I'm using a sanding pad. I just folded it in half so I can do it by hand and smooth out all these edges without the force of the sander tearing it up. So you want to make sure that all these edges have a nice transition, nice and smooth. You'll also need to make sure that this under part is smooth as well. So if you're wondering why I have these clamps on it, so that I can film and it doesn't move. So in a minute I'm going to flip that over. And then I have a finer sandpaper. It's 600 grit. You could also use something finer like 800. And basically I'm going to end up going over all this after just to make it softer so there's no burrs. Alright, so I went ahead and I finished it up with the 100 grit, and this is what it looks like. So as you can tell, it looks jagged like a live slab. Some parts they go down, some parts they go up. So now I'm going to go ahead with that 600 grit, and I'm going to go on the sides, over the top, and I'm going to do all this to make sure that there's no splinters. Okay, so now it's all sanded and I'm on to my staining step. I'm going to be using this, which is dark walnut, and a foam brush to apply it. I have cardboard down, and I'm using these little caps, which are just from like brake cleaner, to put underneath the wood so that the stain can drip off. And I am going to be doing both sides. I don't leave it on very long, and I wipe it off immediately after. So you can see I finished up staining this whole side, and I made sure to go with the grain when I stained it. Most craftsmen that deal with wood will tell you that you need to do everything with the grain of the wood. So I did the edges, and again, you saw how quick I wiped it off. I did it immediately. So now I'm going to flip it and do the other side. So now I'm going to let this dry for 8 hours. That way I can put polyurethane on it. I'm going to use an oil-based one, so it only needs to dry for 8 hours. If it's going to be a water-based one, it needs to dry for 24. So next day, it's time to seal it. Make sure your surface is dust-free. This is the poly that I'm using, and it's an oil-based. Again, you can start 8 hours after putting the stain on, but if it's water-based, it needs to be 24 hours. Okay, so I'm done putting my coat of poly on there. You can see it's all shiny. I do take the brush going along the grain, not against it, and I smooth it out afterwards. Make sure there's no lumps in it and that it's covered well. Also make sure to do all the edges. Let's see, I did all the edges here. And also I'm only doing one coat because I want to make sure that the resin adheres, but I don't want it to be super shiny. I want it to be more of a natural wood. Okay, so I'm ready to do my first set of waves on here. I got my resin and hardener in here, and I'm slowly mixing it up. I am muffled because I'm wearing a respirator. Always make sure you wear a respirator, not a mask, because resin fumes are toxic. So I'm putting some resin in a small cup that I'm going to use for my white. I'm only filling that about halfway. And I'm going to be using Mermaid Trash Foam White. Now I'm going to spread my clear from about here back where I want my wave to be, and it needs to cover the whole back part. Now I'm going to use my silicone brush, and I'm going to smooth that all out and make sure that all of that's covered. I also want it to cover the sides, so I'm going to smear that on the side as well. Now I'm going to take my white and I'm going to pour it along that line. Now I'm going to use my heat gun to blow it. And this is how the waves came out. I didn't get many cells like I like. This was my first time using Mermaid Trash. Typically I use Colorberry white pigment paste and white Jacquard Pinata alcohol ink. But I do think it looks frothy like waves, so I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so that's the end of the first day of waves. So then the next day we're going to go in and do another one, and that's when all our color comes into. Okay, so it's next day and I'm about to do my second set of waves with the blue color. These are the colors I'm going to be using. I'm going to mix Marbler's blue with just cheap black craft paint. I'm going to use the Mermaid Trash again. I'm going to use Pearl-X Sapphire Blue, and then I'm going to mix these two colors as well. And this is from a kit of mica powder that I have, and I'll tag that in the comments. So the last step is to go ahead and remove all these drips off the back. So I'm going to use my heat gun, which is also an embossing tool, and then I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and just slice them off. Okay, so you can see that I went ahead and removed my drips on this side. If it happens to look a little more blonde underneath, like it took the stain off, you can just put some on a paper towel and just dab it on there and wipe it off really quickly, and it'll be good to go.